Hey, everybody. Welcome to Thumbnail. This used to be a podcast. Now it's a web show. I'm Joe Rushert. I'm an illustrator and animator.
And I'm Louis Rosignol, visual artist. And welcome to the first video version of this show. This show has been an audio podcast now for, I don't know how many
About a
episodes we
just
did
just
actually.
just about a year. I think I think we're over 40 episodes.
Wow. So we've got quite a few episodes under our
40,
belt.
40, yeah, 43 episodes is the
And now
number.
we're switching to video. And what we're going to do today is we're going to answer some of our questions from a few people that sent some in. Um, but first, we want to talk about a little bit about what the plan is moving forward for Thumbnail, and what we're going to do over the next few months, and then eventually what we'll be doing. Um, and well, let's just get right into that anyway. So basically, we still have some audio podcasts that we haven't put out that we've recorded. There's some really great interviews, and so we're gonna still put them out, and we're gonna try to do a live video podcast or web show, whatever you wanna call it, like this, every other time. So we'll do like this time will be a video, web show, and then the audio podcast will still come out in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later, we'll be back on video, and we'll continue doing that for the next few months until the audio podcasts are all, um, where we've put them all up. We've uploaded them all. And then we're just gonna every time will be video just like this. We'll stream it live, and I'm excited because there's so many things that we can do that we couldn't do with audio. Um, do you have anything specific that you're excited about with using video like this, Joe?
Yeah, I'm super excited to. I think that's a great way to connect better with our audience, to be able to answer questions live. So as we're talking about our given topic for the day, we could we could alter and change course live, and really answer the questions that you guys want to answer the questions that you guys have. And then I'm also excited with the video. We can even expand it to maybe even doing portfolio reviews. And so that's not only helpful for the person whose portfolio is being reviewed, but it's always helpful to see other people's portfolios and to see where they can improve, and you could typically bring that back to your own work. So
Yeah,
that's that's gonna
I
be
think
cool.
this has a lot of benefits for, and just the fact that we're a visual arts podcast and we talk about a lot of things that it would just be good if people could see them while we're
Yeah.
talking about them, and we'll be able to do that. We'll be able to show you video clips and still images. Um, it's just going to make things, I think, easier, and you'll put faces to the voices that you've maybe been listening to. Um, there's and like you said, the live chat is awesome because we'll be able to do question and answer shows in the future where we can literally type your because we can see a chat on the side here. We probably don't have a ton of viewers right now because we didn't really announce we were going to be doing this. Hopefully, in the future, the audience will grow. Um,
Hmm.
so that's our plan, kind of moving forward. Um, I did want to talk a little bit about a couple things too, and if you want to give any updates on what you're working on too, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool. Um, First off, I just going to address I have Tourette's, and so sometimes you may see ticks, and I sniff and like make noises a little bit. When I'm talking, generally don't have ticks. It's generally when I'm listening and just trying to sit still. So if Joe's talking, maybe you'll hear a sniff or things like that, and it might happen more some days than others. If I have like stress or anxiety, sometimes they get worse. Um, I can control them a little bit, like I've learned over 40 years of having them, how to kind of control them. So thankfully, but they're there, and I just want to address it right now. So in the future, if you see things like that, that's just a tick, and I don't know. There's not much else I wanted to say about it.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm just wanted to thank people. I know some of the people who listen to the podcast have supported my Kickstarter, um, and some YouTube viewers also have supported it. It did reach its funding goal yesterday, which is awesome. That means the books are
Oh, wow.
definitely going to make. Yeah, so I was super
Awesome.
excited to see that, and I set the goal more than twice as high as I did last time because it's 2 books, and I set the goal really low last time, way lower than I even needed because
Mhm.
they tell you to do that, because if you reach your goal really quick, generally that momentum will help you get a lot more, um,
But how
but
many
this time
days are left? There's you
15. So
oh,
it hit the goal basically right at the halfway mark.
that's great.
Yeah, so that's great. Every so this is my 4th crowdfunding, and each time, they do about 20% better than the last time, and this one is on track to do about 20 to 25% better than the last one, so, um, that's just because I get better at doing them, but because, your following will grow a bit, and you'll just but I think it's mainly because 'cause I'm better at promoting them and, it's I know it's annoying when people run a Kickstarter because, like, I hate every day, like, having to kinda remind people, "Hey, my Kickstarter's going," but it's just a one-month period, and so
Yeah.
you just gotta promote it as much as you can.
Yeah. Oh, congrats. That's so awesome.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
hard.
excited.
It's really hard to run a Kickstarter, and you think you make it seem easy.
It's not, and it's super stressful because you don't know if you're gonna hit that goal.
Yeah.
You just don't know. It could be like, "Oh, it's in the middle of a pandemic, people are not don't have money," and, um, it's like if you don't hit that goal with specifically on Kickstarter, if you don't hit that goal, you don't get any of the money.
Yeah.
So, with Indiegogo, it's different. Even if you don't hit your goal, you'll still get the money to put towards the project, but Kickstarter is all or nothing. And
Yeah.
so until I actually hit the goal, I'm, like, stressed because you
Right.
just don't know.
Like, comparing the 2, do you think Kickstarter has a better community? Like, a better success rate? Like, um,
I think actually,
how
that's
do I
a
put
great
this?
question. I don't know who has the better success rate. Um,
'Cause I've heard mixed reviews. Like, yeah, it has the option to, uh like, you could basically cash out without hitting your goal on Indiegogo, and
yeah.
that's nice, but but would you have made more money if you just went to Kickstarter and used that community
I
that
think
already
Kicks
exists?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Kickstarter is a great it has more of a built-in community. So there's more people that are just on Kickstarter.
Mhm.
Um, but if you're a person that has your own following and you're going to be bringing most of the customers or supporters anyway, I don't think it matters which platform you use. Um, so I think it probably doesn't really matter if you need the money to help fund the like for instance, if I was going to put out a book and um, let's say even if it didn't hit the goal, I was willing to put the rest of the money out of my own pocket to publish the book. Then
Mhm.
you just use Indiegogo, I guess, because at least you get some money to help you, no matter whether you reach the goal or not. But if you're doing a project where if you don't reach that goal, then you're not going to even put the book out or the album out or whatever. Then maybe Kickstarter is a good option. Um,
Hmm.
I'm just to be straight up honest, I was gonna put these books out no matter what. I would put because, I know I'd be able to sell them over time, but it is better to try to do it this way and have it builds excitement too a little bit because people pre-order and then they're, waiting for the book and, um, hopefully it lives up to their expectation.
Yeah, that's great. Congrats, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. So that's one thing, and then the other thing I wanted to tell people about, I don't even know I don't know if I've told you this, Joe, but, I'm going to be doing, an art retreat in Morocco,
Mhm.
and it's going to be a 1 week long in May of next year, so a year
Wow.
from now, but it's gonna be in a little villa in Morocco, and it has room for 18 students. And if you come to the retreat, what you basically get is we get to hang out for a week and we do it's going to be a sketchbooking retreat, and I'll do some demos and teach some classes in the mornings. We'll go out on like excursions into different cities and beaches in Morocco. And it's gonna
Wow.
be a ton of fun. And there's a you stay in the villa altogether, and it's private, so there's nobody else there except this to me and then the other people that come. And there's a private chef, so all our meals are taken care of. It's I'll be putting more information out about it probably in the next month on Instagram. So you'll, if you're interested in joining me in Morocco for a week, then definitely uh, look out for that.
All professional artists? Or are they there
No,
to, like, take a class from you?
yeah. So I'll be leading the retreat. So it's anybody who wants to
Ah,
learn. It's like they're basically coming to learn a sketchbooking class that I'll be, or a sketchbooking retreat that I'll be leading. And um, it's not for professional artists only, it's for anybody. If you're even a beginner and you just wanna get into sketchbooking, you can come.
that's cool.
Yeah, so it's a cool opportunity. I'm excited to do it, and, I'll let you know more information as it gets closer. Um,
That's awesome.
so those are a couple of really cool things, and it's funny, it's like, a lot of times you and I will check in at the beginning of podcasts or whatever just to see what's up, and most of the time it's like, don't have much going on. Both of us are just like, whatever. But I happen to have 2 pretty cool things to say today, and then for the next 6 months, every time it'll be like, "Oh, I'm working on my sketchbook and doing nothing else."
Yeah. I've been
So,
working
anyway.
on I've been working on a main themed chess set that I've been really excited about. I recently found someone who's gonna help me out with, the chess board. So all these pieces will come in a chessboard or in a wood box that can be flipped
Yeah,
over and used as a chessboard. And so I'm psyched because this is my first time I'm working with someone in a production level type of environment. It's a small production because there's not going to be a lot of chess sets available. So so yeah, so it's not crazy big, but it's really exciting. I'm really excited to release those.
that's awesome. I can't wait to see it all
And there's
finished.
a
I love chessboards like that are created by, like, an artist and they're unique, so that's
mhm,
exciting. As we go into these questions, I do see we have a couple of people watching in the chat. Tracy, Ed have said hi. So we have a few questions that we'll talk about or we'll answer from different people that had messaged us. If either of you have a question, I can see the chat, so you're welcome to ask, and we'll answer your question too while you're here. Um, but let's get
yeah,
into these questions.
sounds good.
So I'll let you field the first one first, and then I'll give my take on it. But the first
Mhm.
one is just about this person does says they don't know. I'm not going to give their names because I never asked their permission to even use their questions for the show. But they want to know they don't know anything about computers. They have pen and ink drawings that they want to scan, and so they don't know how to scan their work, or if they should photograph it. What's the best way to make copies of their work? I'm assuming to make art prints of, um, or maybe just to put on their website, but make them look as professional as possible. So how do
Mhm.
you tend to do that if you're working traditionally? How would you capture that?
So it depends on the equipment you have. One,
Yeah,
if you have no equipment, there's always the FedEx Kinkos. You know, they'll scan at a high resolution. Minimum minimum asks for 300, but if you're getting it, if you're scanning it for it to be an archive of the actual piece and to get a really high quality print, I would even scan it at 600 DPI.
yeah,
And so DPI is how many pixels per square inch an image is, and
yeah,
pixels are fixed. So think of it as as a grid, and to you can't really blow up an image without it losing quality because those to blow up the image, you're just making those tiny boxes bigger. You're not adding detail,
Right.
so it's missing a lot of information, and now you're just showing the missing information. And so when you have a lot more pixels in jammed into 1 square inch, you'll have a higher quality scan. And so that's one. If you have a scanner, you can do that in your settings. Um, and scanning a flat piece of ink work is probably the best way to do it. Um, the second best way to do it would be taking a photo of it. And to take a good photo of it, you would need good lighting and a decent camera. The best way I've found is to put the piece up on the wall, have two light sources, 45 degrees and 45 degrees from both sides, shining
Right.
at the piece so that so you minimize shadows and have have the camera in the middle straight on and take a high quality photo. Um,
The hard thing about photographing, though, is you have to have it the angle of the camera just right so it's not, like, skewered, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So that can be a super challenge to get it just right.
and then the rest of it is adjustments on
Yeah.
Photoshop or Lightroom. Um, so so a lot to answer your question, you need equipment in order to scan it properly most of the time. If you have no equipment, you can go to somewhere like FedEx and have it scanned for you.
Yeah, the person that was asking, it seems like they're willing to put a little money into it because they wanna do a good job. I'd say if you I mean, you can get a really good scanner, a small scanner, but for $100 you can get an Epson scanner, and, if you're only scanning, like, 8.5 by 11 work, that works great. And if you are scanning larger, you can use those scanners and you can just piece them together in, they have, programs that will do that for you. Um, and photographing is so hard. I never recommend photographing your work unless it's really big, because the lighting has to be perfect and it's hard to color correct after.
I recommend photographing if it's not flat. If it's not a
Yes,
flat piece. So if it has some dimension to it, like a painting, I would recommend photographing because it will
yeah.
be able to pick up on that dimension a little better.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's 100% true. But if it's a totally flat piece and you can scan it, and even with scanning, you're not gonna scan a piece and then it's gonna be ready to go. You're still gonna have to bring it into Photoshop a little bit and mess with the levels because you wanna try to make it look as good as possible. Um, and if it's representing an original piece, you want it to make it look like as close to the original piece as possible. Um, but man, I gotta tell you how many times I've had a piece of art that I posted like on Instagram or something. I took a quick shot of it and then I sold it. And then later on, I was so bummed that I never scanned it before I sent it out because I couldn't use it for maybe like a book or to make prints of now. So I always scan my work, even if it sells quickly, I'll scan it at least and get a good scan before I send it off, just in case I want to do something with the artwork in the future.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
same,
that's
the
smart.
same, yeah. The same person does ask about signing their work, and they don't and this is a question that I think I had thoughts about too when I was first starting, like, they don't wanna detract from their work itself, and so they're like, "Where do I sign it? Should I even sign it?" Some artists sign the back of their work,
Hmm.
um, and so I guess I'll field this one first, and then since you fielded the last one first. I personally, if it's a print, I would leave right around the edges so that I can sign below the print. So I'll you know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
just that way if they wanna frame it so that they can see the signature, they can. If they'd rather frame it and they don't see the signature, they can do that too. Um, and I use a light pencil, so
Hmm.
it's, dark enough so that you can see, but it's not so dark that it's takes away from what you're doing. And then as far as, um, actual original piece. I also use a light pencil, but I do sign it on the piece itself. I try to do it in the bottom right corner, but if there's like a part of the art is down there in the way, I'll just do it on the bottom left corner.
Mhm.
What is your practice with if you're signing your pieces?
It comes up a lot when I'm teaching classes and critiquing student work, um, because there's a tendency to oversign, right? To like make it known like this is mine, and it's basically in like the middle of the page, or like even if it's at the bottom right hand corner, sometimes it's just over the top signature that's taking all the hierarchy of the piece, and that's not what the piece is about. The piece isn't about your signature. So I think it's important to there's no one right answer to this. And I like to try to hide the signature, or at least not make it the top as far as hierarchy is concerned. It needs to be last. And so it could be, if it's in the piece, maybe it's like within the shadow and it's a slightly different value, you know, but it's not fully obvious at first. If you're looking for it, you'll find it.
So
Or
you're really trying to hide it then.
but like not even that much. You don't have to try that hard for it to not be the first thing you see,
Yeah.
you know? Don't let it be the first thing you see. Don't let it even be the second thing you see. Make it like the fifth, 10th thing you see. Um,
You should basically make it so if someone's looking for it, they can find it, but it's not something you notice. You want it to sit in the background, right?
right. It's not a Where's Waldo, but it's hidden ish.
Yeah, I will say too, like I've read things online that say like make sure that you if you sign your work that it's legible and people can read it because if it's hanging somewhere and someone wants to know who the artist is if they can't read it, um, I don't know if I could even agree with that. I signed mine and there's no way you could read my signature. Um, and I used to sign pieces almost in print so you could read it, and then I'm like this isn't even how I sign anything except art. And so I just switched it back to my regular signature. Um, I figure they can ask if whoever's house they're at that's hanging and say, "Hey, who did this piece?" if they really want to know.
Yeah, but sometimes they won't know. If they think generations down the line, they might not know, or if it passes changes hands or whatever. So I do like, especially with originals, even digitals. I'll do a print version of my last name, just like Rosher in all caps
Yeah.
somewhere. Sometimes I'll do it up the side of a canvas, like on this. And I love doing that. Um, and and then if it's a print, so I'll have the Rosher hidden somewhere within the actual piece itself, but then I'd sign it how I would like sign a check, um, in the bottom, like you were mentioning, in the white space right underneath the print. If it's a canvas, um, most of the time, I'll sign and date it on the back with like my check signature, and also add the title there. So um, redundancy is fine, and I think it's okay, especially if the signature is hidden a little bit. So it's not the first thing you see.
Cool. Yeah, I think that I agree with you basically. I think like as far as the signature itself, it's up to you how you want to if you want to make it more legible, that's totally fine. We did get a question that wasn't on the notes, but Tracy's asking, when did you start doing your art? Did you teach yourself? And so that's a question that we both can answer. Um, we actually, you could go first, and I'll go second on this one.
Um, how you first start? I think you first start how everyone first starts, right?
Well, I think she's asking when did you first start doing your art?
Right, like as a kid? Like is that what I
Well,
think everyone first does art as a kid is what I'm
oh, okay.
kind of getting at. But when did I think the real question is when did I think when was first doing art for the sake of doing art as an artist maybe? Would probably be yeah, still as a kid. I was like 9, you know, I was seeking out art classes and I really loved it and I didn't have art classes with my school at the time. And so I had to go out of my way to find additional help with that. And my parents were luckily supportive.
Yeah, both Joe and I do have, degrees, so we did go to art school, and we've talked about that a little bit on other podcasts, but, so neither of us are self-taught, although nowadays, like, you do a lot of your own self-teaching on YouTube and, other things like that, and so, although I did learn a lot at school, I've learned a lot not at school too, and so there's benefits to both ways. I
I
think I
think
started.
school
Oh, go ahead.
oh sorry. I think school helped us learn how to learn, really. I think that's what I got most out of a college education was not only a foundational platform to jump off of, but it gave me the ability to start teaching myself m- even deeper through online courses and classes.
Cool. Yeah, I thought as far as art school goes, most I got out of it was the connections and just the network, and I did learn a lot there too. Um, but I started art like Joe as a kid. I like to draw a lot, and as I got older, I did seek out additional classes. I went down to Kennybunk and took some carving classes, and then I took a lot of time off after I graduated high school and got, like, jobs I didn't like, and then I went back to school to study art when I was 30. I don't know, early mid-30s, and so I've only been a professional artist for maybe 5 years, and, Joe, when did you graduate Mecca?
2011,
So 10 years.
started freelancing in 2009 while I was still a student.
Yeah. Joe and
Um,
I both started freelancing while we were still students, which is cool. Like, not everyone does that, but it's a good opportunity if you can manage it for sure.
yeah, but
The next question. Oh, go
That's
ahead.
always a hard question for me. You know, like when did you start? Yeah, and
Well,
I think
I know what you mean. I kind of was taking it like, when did you start professionally? But I guess that maybe
yeah,
wasn't what Tracy meant.
yeah.
How do you balance your time in the studio with other commitments such as part-time job, family, admin? I don't have a part-time job and neither does Joe. This is our full-time job, which does make things easier to balance. Because if you have another job on top of it, on top of your art job or your art hobby, that does make things challenging.
Hmm.
I'll tell you how I balance things. So, and I think this is probably the best way for anybody. You have to have a hierarchy of what's the most meaningful or most important things in your life, right? And so I personally like my hierarchy is, God, family, and then my art. And so when I make my schedule or when I think about my schedule, I make sure that the first thing in my hierarchy gets scheduled in first and I have time for that. And then the next thing I have scheduled in for that and just down the line. And so what's the most important thing to you? And then make your schedule out and try to stick to it. And I know that's not easy, and a lot of artists aren't very organized, and so scheduling isn't um, the easiest thing. But you have to make time for um, your family. You have to make time. You can't be so focused on your art that you neglect everything else in your life. How
Yeah,
do you stay balanced, Joe?
work life balance is tricky, especially when you have relationships and family and friends you want to hang out with, it's really easy to go down either rabbit holes. You know, I could go down the friend rabbit hole and not touch art for weeks, you know, but
Mhm.
you have to also stay disciplined and have your boundaries, uh have your time that's scheduled for work. Uh I come at this in two ways. One, I'm fortunate enough to have a very flexible schedule, and so I'm able to flex my schedule around uh my girlfriend's schedule and her work schedule. And so I could work when she works, and then I could also work when she needs, you know, her time, you know. And so that's always good to keep in mind of. So you try to I try to mold around the environment, but you can only do that so much. You have to keep in mind uh when are your best times and keep those sacred. Like, are you really, really productive at night? Are you really, really productive in the morning? Um, s- Sometimes inspiration just strikes. Are you going to be able to just capitalize on that momentum and take advantage of that? So, uh, one, I think it's important to have some structure, some scheduled structure. Uh, you go to your studio, you're focused on your work, even if you're not working, just being in their studio work environment um, will help you move forward. As weird as that sounds, sometimes doing nothing in the right environment is enough to get the mind going to break out of break break free from being unproductive.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, keeping your time sacred for when it works best for you, and having I believe in having flexibility. You know, sometimes inspiration strikes. Take that time. It's a job. You got to treat it like one. And so, like, what if I was an on-call doctor and all of a sudden I got a call? They go into the ER. You know, and that's okay. That's okay with my family. You know, and so why isn't anything else like that? It's like, why can't I just run to the studio when an emergency inspiration strikes, you know? So you kind of have to be a little bit of both, flexible and scheduled.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I didn't mean like I schedule out every minute of my day. I meant just like, okay, I know Wednesday mornings I'm doing this. And so obviously there's times that things come up and you've got to move things around. And that's important for sure. And you have to be flexible. It's just I think it's just important to keep in mind what your hierarchy is and not to neglect things um
Like it's
because
so
like
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
well, you just need those things to inspire you for your art too. Like you can't just let if you just do art all the time, you have nothing that's inspiring you to put into your art. You have to go out and take a nature walk and you have to
Yeah,
go and do things to fill your creative bank or whatever you want to call it. Otherwise, you're just I don't even know how I'd like to meet an artist that was like that where they didn't do anything but art. And I'm sure they're out there that that's all they do. And I don't even know where they would keep getting inspiration from. I think that
true.
so you just have to have like a hierarchy. But man, when you have a like, let's say art isn't your career and you have a full time job, but you're trying to move into art, then that becomes even way more challenging to try to balance things because you've got your job, your whatever other things are in your hierarchy, and then your art, and so you just have to prioritize. There's no better way to put it than that. Um, in my
I
mind.
can't. I came from both sides too. I was very much a workaholic, and uh, I would just get hyper focused on something and work through the night and go to bed at like 2 or 3 in the morning. But I realized very quickly that that's not sustainable, and I have to keep my boundaries. And so I started going home around 6, 7 o'clock. Make sure I get home for dinner, right?
Yeah.
And then so now my nights aren't work focused, and then also trying my best when I can to take my weekends, and just be able to take my weekends and spend time with the people that I want to spend time with, and that's helped a lot because I had to schedule in life rather than schedule in my art, and so it's funny how that sometimes flips.
But you have to do it. You have to make sure that you're putting time into that stuff. The last question that I think we should answer today, is what is the biggest challenge of being an artist? And man, I don't even know if I could pick one biggest challenge. Um, do you have like one that just pops out? I'll talk about some challenges, but I can't think of one that would be like just the one that pops out as the main one or the biggest one.
Biggest is finances, second biggest is marketing. And
Well,
so
that's good that you could rattle them off that quick. So talk about that. Finances is, I mean, that's obvious. That's just like trying to keep your head above water, right?
yeah, it's always tricky, and then figuring out that you need to have multiple streams of income, um, how to prepare for your rainy day fund. Your um, it's not always consistent paying work, and so how do you deal with that? And a lot of that is making sure you really don't spend above your means, and to live way below what you think your means are, just so you have this substantial cushion, so you're not always thinking about it and stressing about it. So the bigger your cushion is, the better. I like to try to have um, s- 6 months to a year of um, life expenses saved up for the times that a global pandemic hits
Yeah.
and you get screwed. And but at least, yeah, I know, well, I prepared for this, I'm fine.
Yeah. If
Well,
you can manage that.
I could ride this out. And it took a lot to get there. Um but you got to take it step by step. And we could get into that more in other podcasts, but that's definitely the biggest challenge. But that gets easier and easier and easier. The marketing is the second biggest because uh it's a ton of work. It's a ton of work to keep track of all your social media, um, and and all that. You end up having to learn how to be a business more than just being an artist, and so you have to wear a lot of hats, and that is hard.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not easy. I think you're probably now that I'm thinking about it, the first one is I agree with 100%. It's definitely money. You have to I also like to have a cushion, and so I make sure that I have a certain amount of money in the bank, and, if I start getting close to that line that I've set myself in my mind, like, I don't wanna drop below this amount of money, then what I do is I cut back on my expenses a little bit and start budgeting a bit more, and then I'll have a couple of good weeks, and so it goes up a little bit, so I can, okay, we'll go out to eat and do some things, but you have to be, you just have to be smart with your money, and that is a challenge, like you said, when you're in a career that, is not consistent money, you don't get, I get 900 bucks check every Friday, so I know exactly what I'm gonna make. That's not how it is when you're an artist. It's really good month followed by okay month, and then a
Hmm.
not good month, you know? So it stinks, and I gotta tell you, I'm sure Joe feels this way too. When you're in those weeks or months where it's, like, not great, you feel like, you wonder, like, "Am I ever gonna get out of that? Like, is it
Mhm.
gonna get busy again?" But it does. But, man, in those slow times, it's like it's hard.
It is, yeah, it does get tough sometimes. But then
Yeah,
you have to remember that your perspective, or rethink your perspective.
yeah.
And how I think too is, if even if I had all the money I needed, what would I be doing? And if it's art, well, then you chose the right you chose the right thing. If I had all the money in the world, or people hustle and bustle to try to get as much money as they can, to what? What do they do with that money? And it's usually to buy back their time. And so when you're in this time period where you have the time and you're just kind of stressing about having too much of it, it's it's easy it's easy to forget how good you have it.
I know, it's like so many people have all this time right now because of COVID, and
Hmm.
they're, like, just wasting it, like, just scrolling through TikTok or whatever all day, and they could be doing productive things. Could you on your end, Joe, I don't know what your screen looks like on your end of the, platform we're using. Can you see the chat, or is it just showing up on mine?
I can't see the chat. No.
Oh, I'll so Tracy agrees. She thinks that she would rather live like a cheap life that she's happy rather than an expensive lifestyle and be unhappy. And it's true. It's like money isn't happiness. Um, and so you really want to make sure you're living a happy life. And
But
um,
it does help with happiness. Like,
they said though, I've heard statistics where it's like once you hit like I think it's $70,000 or something, that's enough money where you can live pretty comfortably, and above that you don't get happier. So people
interesting.
making that I don't know, that's just a study that I've heard, but it's
Yeah.
probably there's probably some truth to it. Once you
Yeah.
don't have to worry much about your bills anymore, like, you're not gonna get much happier because you are a millionaire. Um,
Right.
Ed says even with consistent money, he does has the same tactic, so I'm assuming he also likes to keep a cushion in his bank, and he
Yeah.
must make a consistent paycheck, so, um, that's it's just a good idea. Whether you make a consistent paycheck or whether you're a freelance artist that doesn't. Um,
And
the
the pandemic kind of brought out one little thing to the same vein, where um you could have the consistent paycheck and feel pretty good about that, but then you don't realize that all of a sudden it can be taken away. And a lot of people, I think, had to deal with that this past year.
yeah,
And that's what's so beneficial about uh, being self-employed, and be able to uh, structure your own way to make some income, is because then at least it's under your control, and you can start developing streams of income that are passive and that are relatively consistent, and use those as your baseline. And then once you have that, you're not going to fire yourself, and so that's security too. I almost think that's more security in a lot of ways, once you build that structure. So yeah, it's all perspective.
100% agreed. Um, I do think you hit on, like, probably the 2 biggest challenges as far as being an artist, and those are of course, you touched on the biggest challenges of being a professional artist, and there are challenges of just being an artist, which I think the one that most I hear most often is just staying like inspired and how do you come up with like constantly come up with ideas. People wonder that about artists, like how do you always because that I mean, I draw a lot of the same things. I draw a lot of portraits of people. I draw a lot of fish and insects, and so how do I come up with ideas? Is I do a lot of the same things over and over again, and I don't get bored. I would probably get bored if I only drew just portraits or
Hmm.
but because I have like a few different things in my wheelhouse, I'll do portraits for a week and then I'll be like, all right, I'm bored of that. I gotta switch it up. And so I have, and I know you do animation, and then you also like to sculpt. So you probably are in the same. I'm assuming you do the same type of thing where you have to switch it up occasionally so that you
Yeah.
can stay inspired and
Yeah, I love switching it up. I think it's really beneficial, and it directly helps all your different practices. You know, my
yeah,
sculpture work helps with my drawing. My drawing helps with my animation. My animation helps, with my sculpture. And so uh it all benefits.
awesome. Well, I think this was a interesting start to our
Yeah.
video podcast, our video web show, however, whatever we're gonna call it. We didn't tell, like I said, we didn't tell anybody that we were going live or on our social media. So it was nice. Just the fact that anybody showed up at all is surprising.
Yeah, that
Um,
was cool.
Hopefully, moving forward, we'll be able to promote the show a little bit and get more followers. I mean, we'll get people to listen and watch, but it's nice to have people live because then when we do question and answer shows, we can have your questions live. Yeah, that was it. Like I said, we're going to continue to do audio podcasts and put the few out that we still have left. We have an interview with Scott Nash that we've done that's coming out. Carla Sondheim, who's got a great teaching platform. So those interviews we've done, they're not going to be on the video platform. So check them out on like the Apple Podcast platform. They're on. It's our thumbnail podcast is on a lot of platforms where you can find podcasts. So it's pretty easy to find. Um, but yeah, spread the word. If you're a listener and you know other people that listen, let them know that we're on YouTube now, and this is gonna be the main platform.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, cool. Have a good one.